Hi, I'm Denis O'Brien, founder of Digicel and Entrepreneur.
Denis O'Brien is one of Ireland's most successful entrepreneurs and founder of communications and entertainment provider Digicel. Here he shares his insights into how he took his business idea to a global audience.
I started talking to my father about business probably when I was about 10 or 11 years old. Every Saturday morning we'd go out into the Wicklow Mountains and we would spend time with a sheep farmer looking for a sheep across the military road up in the back of Lackdown. And, you know, during all those long walks for hours and hours, you know, I would talk to my father about business. And my father started his own company in 1974. I can even remember the day that he started the business. And I can remember the tension for the, 6 months to a year after that around the dinner table, because we were all worried that the business would not become successful and start making money, but thankfully it did. And as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, I started talking to my father about business, asking about the business, where his sales were coming from. I used to go out to his factory. I used to work in the factory. And then, in the car on the way home from the factory, he'd tell me everything about the business. And then when I was back at school, say in September, I'd start talking to him again on the way to school. And then in the evening time when he came home, I would then find out what happened, because there were always problems. There were problems where some of his agents, I remember one particular French agent didn't pay him £30,000 at the time, and like the world was nearly ending. If you made a sale in Ireland in the 70s, you were more worried about getting paid than actually delivering the product. And the way he had to deal with the bank for his overdraft facility, the way sometimes products got damaged in transit to, say, Japan. And it became a kind of a dialogue with him where he trained me everything about business, just in the car going to school and in the evening when he came home. And I kind of got this one-on-one tuition from him, and it kind of developed instincts for business and common sense. And I was very fortunate to get a very kind of compressed digital education in business spread over many, many years. My earliest memories of conversations with my father, he always spoke about freedom. And he felt that as an entrepreneur, he had great freedom, that he didn't have to report to somebody. He didn't have to work with people that he didn't particularly admire. And, he said, look, if you're an entrepreneur and you create a job for yourself and then maybe 2 or 3 other people, he said, that's success. But you've got your independence. And he always kind of inculcated this idea to me that if you're an entrepreneur, you could be independent and you could be the master of your own destiny. And that kind of stayed with me for the rest of my life. And since 1988, basically, I've been working for myself. My father then insisted that I go to university, and I wasn't sure about that at the time, but I wanted to study commerce, but I just couldn't do mathematics. I just didn't see the relevance of trigonometry or, Pythagoras, and I failed maths, repeatedly, got a reasonable leaving cert despite that, couldn't do commerce, but I went in to study history and politics in UCD. And immediately I set up my own business when I went into UCD, and that was a painting contracting business, because there weren't that many lectures. There's only like 2 or 3 hours of lectures a day. And in the evening time, I would go and paint houses and offices with a friend of mine, and it was my first business. My father developed a business in equine nutrition products, and he sold his products all over the world. So he sold Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, even Trinidad. And, he kind of gave me that idea that, markets didn't just stop in Ireland, but, that you should look outside Ireland if you've got a good enough product and develop your business internationally rather than looking inwards. And I suppose that was one of the reasons that I kind of left Ireland and started developing mobile businesses around the world in 2000. There are so many Irish entrepreneurs now, and one of the great things about the EOY Entrepreneur of the Year program is that you meet all of them and they've all these incredible business ideas. But one of the things that I kind of emphasize to them is, yes, develop your business in Ireland, develop revenues here, but really put your emphasis on bringing your company into the wider world. The scale of those markets is far greater. You have a greater opportunity of building your business and developing sales revenues quicker because of the scale of them. And you could be spending your time 2 or 3 years in Ireland developing 4 or 5 or 10 million euros of sales, whereas if you put the same effort into developing Germany or the UK or the US markets and build a large scale business out of that. When we sold ESA Telecom in early 2000, everybody was celebrating, and everybody made money out of the deal. All my staff, all our managers and my partners, and everybody was cock-a-hoop as such. But within a week of that, it was a bit of a leveler because I'd no office to go to. All my former colleagues were back in the business, and I had nothing to do with the business. And I immediately kind of panicked in a sense that I had nothing to do with my life, from working 12, 14 hours a day to actually, worried, well, how are you going to fill the day? And it's at that stage that you drop your guard and you make investments that are not well thought out. And I was fortunate, I only did 1 or 2 of them and they were reasonably small. But then I hit on a bigger idea, and that was to take all my experience as a mobile operator and a telecoms operator in Ireland and bring it to other countries that didn't have second operators or didn't have mobile communications. And that's when I read that small little ad in the FT where the Jamaican government were inviting bids for a mobile phone license to come in as the number 2 operator into Jamaica. The day we put in the bid for the mobile phone license in Jamaica was the day I started hitting the phones and ringing some of my former colleagues in ESAT and saying, would you like to come on an adventure down to Jamaica and build a mobile business? And a lot of them said, yeah, let's go immediately. And we sent 2 or 3 people down to Jamaica. They rented a small office. Within 9 months, we'd built the network there, built towers all over Jamaica. And we launched the business and we got 70% market share within a couple of years. So we overtook the incumbent. But, that was a great feeling as such because that kind of tested the model. And then we took that model and applied for licenses all over the Caribbean. And we were sending teams into countries that built networks in 6 months. And we were launching a new country every, 4 or 5 months at one stage. Then our competitor AT&T kind of gave up the ghost and they said, we'll sell you our business. And we went and bought that. So, we were financing this, and it was fairly hairy at one stage because we were buying tens of millions of dollars of network equipment, and we were starting businesses that were losing money for 3 or 4 months, then turning profitable. Then we were moving to the next island. So it was, it was quite a trick to keep that model going until we could draw breath and have all the businesses profitable. And that took us about 4 years. Actually in this office, I remember looking at the atlas one morning with a couple of my colleagues, and we were trying to figure out the world, where else would we go? And we were looking for kind of Commonwealth countries with good rule of law. And we looked at the Pacific, and the Pacific, Fiji, Samoa, Papua New Guinea are all Commonwealth countries. And we just said, we're going there. So we agreed to buy a business first of all from Telecom New Zealand. They had a kind of an orphan business in Samoa, and we bought that for 15 million quid or something like that, and off we went. And we sent a team to the Pacific that went on to build a very significant business. The whole idea came out of taking a business in Ireland, that had been successful and having a good business model, and then taking it into the wider world, which we successfully did in 32 countries. I have to admit, when we went to Jamaica, I never thought about being the biggest mobile operator in the Caribbean. I mean, that would have been I would have been stoned at that stage even to think like that. But within a year or two, I said to myself, wow, we can actually do this. And it's a matter of riding the potential and maximizing the potential of the market opportunity here. And as entrepreneurs, sometimes people either go forward at breakneck speed or else they go slowly at the opportunity. And it really depends the business you're in, of course, but there was such a demand for mobile communications at the time, we decided to go at breakneck speed. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs we kind of hold back, but if you've got a good business model, you need to accelerate it and try and dominate the markets and become the biggest player in each of the markets that you have entered. So, getting big early is probably a good idea. In every country that we started our operations in, our business became profitable within probably 6 months, maximum 9 months. And that was great in kind of well-off countries like Barbados or Cayman or Bermuda. But, something troubled me in a market like in Haiti, where we were making serious amounts of money in Haiti very, very quickly. And I had this kind of guilt pang every time I was flying home back to Ireland, where, I felt guilty about making a profit, which was probably wrong. I shouldn't have felt guilty, but I felt guilty also because of the poverty that I saw in Haiti every time I went down there. And, one day I just said, I'm going to do something about this. And I rang Maria Mulcahy, who is head of our foundation. I said, Maria, we're going to do something different in Haiti, and we're going to go big in education. I said to Maria, Maria, let's go and build 10 large schools in Port-au-Prince. And she said, how are we going to do that? We don't know any construction companies. We don't have any engineers or architects. I said, go and find a way of doing it. And she came back about a month later and she says, I have a team, we've designed 10 schools, we think the schools can be standardized in their construction and they can be delivered at a reasonable cost. So I said, okay, go and build them. So we built the schools in about 9 months, a year, and next thing, the earthquake hit. And the earthquake in Haiti was absolutely shocking. About 300,000 people lost their lives in Port-au-Prince, and most of the construction of homes and houses and buildings in Port-au-Prince had no steel in them. They were concrete with little or no steel, and they all crumbled. And what really troubled me was that the 10 schools that we just opened had been shook and stayed up in the earthquake. But in the back of my head is, did we put enough steel and reinforcement into those schools? And I said to Maria, go and knock down the schools and rebuild them and make sure that we put in so much steel and make them seismic proof that they'll never come down. Since the initial 10 schools, we've gone on to build 187 schools across Haiti, and we have 60,000 children a day attending those schools. It's not about just building really functional schools with libraries and internet access and access to IT, but it's also about training the teachers. So we have a separate program where we train teachers. So, we're getting really great outcomes now in the state exams, where the children in the schools that we have built in conjunction with local communities, the exam results of the children now are going up and up and up every year. We're trying to KPI it in a way, because that's what business is. You have to measure things, and we're now measuring how many children and that are graduating from these schools, but also what are their exam results. If you're investing in poor countries, you've got to leave something behind. There has to be a legacy that not alone do you develop your business to great heights, but you also have to do something in the community. And I think that fits very well with Irish people, because Irish people have always given to their means to various different, to charities, to NGOs, to missionaries, in the last 40, 50 years. So, I think that's a way, it's kind of a bit of philanthrocapitalism, but I think that's a better way for business in the future. As entrepreneurs, we need to reinvent ourselves. We have to really keep up to date with the changes in the world that we operate in, how our markets are changing, how technology is influencing that change. But also, we need to upskill ourselves and give ourselves more and more knowledge about what's happening in the world. In recent years, technology is moving so rapidly that we have to keep on adapting the products and services that we sell. So normally, let's say 3 or 4 years ago, if you introduced a product, you mightn't upgrade that product or change it in any way for a year or two. Now, you have to keep changing the product as the consumer changes. So we used to sell just voice services, we sold data services, but because of OTTs like WhatsApp and Netflix, we have created our own ecosystem where we have created 8 different digital apps for music, for television, for sports. You can watch the Premiership with a package of data around that. That means we bring our customers into our own ecosystem instead of them going to ESPN or Sky or some other provider. As entrepreneurs, timing is the most important ingredient. It's when to buy, when to sell. And right now, the markets are so hot. Private equity is just so stuffed with cash that they're trying to buy businesses all over the world. This is a time where people can sell their businesses at higher multiples than they ever expected. And I'm always a great believer that if somebody gives you a big valuation of your business, take it. Because in the space of a year, things can change, and you could spend the next 5 years with your business and not grow the value of it. Entrepreneurs, live in an environment where there's plenty of ups and downs. There's wins and there's losses. There's, market share gains. You can lose market share. Your business can be successful for a year and then find business much tougher as such. But if you're in a cycle where valuations are at an all-time high, it's really time to sell. And, I'm a great believer in trying to buy businesses when the market is down and sell businesses when the market is going up. And we are in an up cycle at the moment. And, not every business is saleable at the moment, but if there's a window, grab it. If you want to scale your business, you just have to hire really smart people, and you delegate to them and you make them responsible with great urgency to implement the plan. And when I look at CEOs that we employ in various countries, I always look around the table and see how good the people are that he or she has surrounded themselves by. And I think it's the real measure of a CEO is the talent around them and the people. I always think that I need to hire somebody smarter than I am in nearly every area, or make up for your own deficit. HR bores the brain out of me. So I have a really good HR director who is really top class. Finance I like, so that's not a problem. But you have to make up for things that you're not interested in or you're easily bored by having really brilliant people. I think as entrepreneurs, we sometimes don't really see the need to have a very good board. I would be the opposite of that. I've always thought that having a good board of directors provides a very good sounding board, but it also helps us keep on track to where we're going, make sure that the plans that we put in place over 1 year, 2 years or 3 years are met. And I think I was very lucky, I know I've been lucky to have really good directors on my board since 2001. In Jamaica, we came in as the challenger. We came in against Cable and Wireless, which was there for 110 years at that stage. And then we competed with them in all the other countries in the region where we got licenses. And the playbook in broad terms was similar, but we then tailor-made the strategy for each of the countries. And then we brought very experienced people, sprinkled experienced people into the management teams as we went into a new country. And then we recruited more people, gave them more experience, and then we kept on a meritocracy basis, promoting people to become, senior managers and CEOs in a very short period of time. We took teams of people, 4 or 5 people, and we sent them, say, into Grenada or into Guyana to start up our business. So because we grew so fast, we had to promote people that were very young, but they merited to be promoted. And they weren't hanging around for 10 years to be a CEO. We would take somebody in, make them maybe a sales director, and ultimately within a year or 2, they could become a CEO of a small market. Within another 2 years, they could be in a mid-tier market. Another 3 years, maybe they would end up running a business with $300 million in revenue, making $150 million. So it was all about creating a meritocracy. When I'm employing people and people come into me looking for a job, I look at the CV, but I'm not interested in what school they went to. I'm not interested in whether they played Gaelic football or rugby. I'm really interested to see what jobs they did in their spare time and how young they were when they took those jobs. So were they 16 and they went to work in a bar or a shop or a petrol station or worked on a farm? And I think that experience is more relevant to me as an entrepreneur in terms of the raw material of that person and what they can do in their future career than whether they did a PhD. The EY Entrepreneur of the Year program has been going since 1998. Every year it's got better. And it's got better in a number of ways. The bar has been raised for entrepreneurs, that if you're a winner or a category winner or you even become one of the 24, you must be bloody good. And what we're seeing is an ever increasing quality of entrepreneurs. They're just much more savvy, they're well thought out in their plans. And when I read the decks and all the information that I get as a judge, I'm astounded by what's happening in Ireland. There is a profound change in the quality and the greatness of entrepreneurs. I also think that the alumni, from the EY Entrepreneur of the Year program are also getting a huge amount of benefit from the program many, many years later since they went to try and win the competition, because we've all become great friends. There's literally hundreds of us all together as alumnus. We're meeting, we're talking. We can talk by dropping our guard and really getting into the detail of our business and being open and having conversations of what the challenges each of us have. And I think there's a great trust, there's a great camaraderie now within the program of all the alumnus that have been in and out of the competition over many years.